Here is Michael Zeltner, this guy over there, yeah? And here is a group Michael is collaborating with, and they are called Uniform, and they provided us with a special song for tonight. And here, next picture, you can see microwaves, okay? And you know Pollock. Pollock rhymes with dog. And now I try to get an instrument for you. $800. And what do we have here? It's called Henry. It's 18 by 24. It's a stretched canvas, framed professionally carried out. Okay. We have the canvas. We have the egg. And now we'll make an instant action painter. Stay in there. I'm sorry. Voilà. Can I put the crap on your table? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Please try it at home and then sell it. And if you want some eggs, we have so many of them. So please, please, please. And now, in our regular column, old metaphor, today we have for you the so-called war on terrorism. We tried to somehow find a proper metaphor for you guys here to understand the concept of terrorism or the war against terrorism. Please. It's getting boring. And now we have Jake Applebaum. Yes! Jake Applebaum is our regular monochrome guest star tonight because he's our ambassador in San Francisco and all over the world. Here is your microphone. And you are here because you had some strange troubles, or you were like involved in a couple of interesting things and bad things in the last couple of months. And your topic is unintended consequences of censorship. So please, Jake, tell us about what happened.
So I, like many people on here, I assume, but as well as in the rest of the world, publish a lot of my photographs and writings and various things on the internet. And an interesting thing happened. Approximately in February, I believe, Flickr instituted some new policies. And I believe, actually, Mishi can probably tell you a little bit about the German and Austrian side of it. But I found myself in a very curious position over the next photograph. This one, which sadly is not one of my favorite photographs I've ever taken. And it has become one of the most well-known photographs that I've ever taken. Because, as it happens, a pro-democracy activist in Hong Kong by the name of Owen Lam, and I know that I'm butchering her name because I don't understand the tonal system in the Chinese language, but she linked to this photograph as an example of nudity that is not pornography, it is not obscenity, it isn't something that you wouldn't want to show your children or your grandparents or something like this, but it's in fact a tasteful nude portrait with a professional model, with professional rope bondage, done by JD of the Two Naughty Boys in San Francisco. And it was a professional shoot done for the purpose of creating art. And so Owen linked to this photograph and did so as an example, like I said, about art that is tasteful. And I find that quite flattering, and the model found it flattering, and the rope bondage artist also thought that was great, that it's tasteful art. But the censorship committees in Hong Kong did not find this to be tasteful art. In fact, Owen is now looking at 1 year in prison and a 400,000 Hong Kong dollar fine for hyperlinking to this photograph on Flickr, which I wouldn't recommend publishing your photographs on Flickr anymore. Because it just so happens that around the same time that this hyperlink was published, my photographs on Flickr were considered to be unsafe. They went from safe to moderate to unsafe, which is Flickr's internal rating system. And depending on how you're flagged in that, well, it just so happens that your content disappears from the entire planet if you're not logged in as a user of Yahoo. But if you are logged in, depending on what you say your home country is, well, then this stuff is still not available to you. My understanding is that people in Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Hong Kong, and Singapore can't actually even see any of the 17,000 photographs I published online. Which is, you know, not a big deal. It's not particularly great photography. It doesn't particularly matter to me except for the principle of the matter, which is that I put this online and it sort of went into the memory hole if you're in these countries. And Yahoo has a number of reasons for doing this, apparently. In Germany, they say it's because it's impossible to verify the age of the people that use their systems, and that apparently there are very draconian laws in Germany, and that Germany is an unfree country, and it isn't possible to publish these things there. And I find that to be really funny, coming from Yahoo, considering how complicit they've been in very, very nasty things in other countries. That said, some very nice representatives from Flickr ignored all of my requests for help, including a request for them to assist Owen Lam in Hong Kong. And part of this is that Owen's case will be made more difficult by the fact that Flickr has censored me and considered me unsafe. Because this gives the censorship board in Hong Kong an example of how even a corporation does not find this to be appropriate. And so it's interesting because, now I haven't had this confirmed, I've had it actually explicitly denied that my account was rated unsafe for reasons other than the Hong Kong censorship board talking to Flickr. But what we know is that when my account became unsafe and the photo disappeared, it will adversely affect this legal proceeding, which will probably create a very negative precedent in Hong Kong, wherein simply hyperlinking to photographs of people, if there's any nudity in the photograph at all, unless there's an explicit warning and some sort of check or something, people can actually go to prison for this, which is a pretty crazy thing. And another crazy thing is the real unintended consequence of this is that I spoke with a group of lawyers in the United States, and they continually told me that they were not allowed to give legal advice for China, but that if this person was going to go to jail simply because of publishing a link to a photograph, that I should probably never set foot in Hong Kong or China as long as I live. Because, as it so happens, I've published 17,000 other photographs that are also marked as unsafe now. And so there's a strong possibility that if they want to punish someone simply for making hyperlinks, they would probably also very much like to publish some newspaper articles about punishing people that create so-called obscenities. And so it's kind of interesting in that simply by publishing on an American website that seeks to grow its profit margins by growing into new and vastly more fascist territories, I would essentially have canceled myself out from being able to visit those countries. And that's not too bad, although I'll miss the Beijing Olympics. I'm very sad about that. It's really bad for Owen, wherein even possibly testifying and helping her in her case is basically impossible. Going to Hong Kong now would possibly result in never leaving Hong Kong again. I find this to be pretty disturbing. And when I talked with Flickr about this, they had the very nice idea of unblocking my account, which I think is very nice, because that would mean that you in Germany and people all over the world would be able to see these photos, and that they would even give me a free year of service as a you know, sort of like, we're very sorry about your account being blocked and possibly sending someone to prison, and so we just wanted to give you a free year of service. And I'm not particularly keen on taking them up on this idea, other than possibly to take my photographs out of their system and put them into a competitor, for example, a website called Zoomer, which is run by some interesting people in California, who've promised not to do this to me and to the people in China that may link to them, and not to cooperate with the Chinese government at all. But since I haven't actually directly heard from people at Yahoo, I'm not entirely certain about what they want to do in order to help this person that is in serious jeopardy. Their freedom is in serious jeopardy. The people at Flickr that I did talk to had to talk to me off the record, because I suppose that their big corporate master Yahoo doesn't allow them to talk about these things on the record. So it's a little disturbing in that these photographs, which aren't particularly obscene to me, maybe are particularly obscene in Hong Kong, I'm not sure. I can't really speak to the cultural differences there, as I'm, you know, Occidental living in California. I probably don't understand obscenity in most of the world, actually. And that said, the result of this is that by simply pushing photos out, you can become, you know, an enemy of a state, effectively, which I think is really quite a shame. And it gets worse as the time goes on, in that I think in September or so will be the very first of the censorship case in Hong Kong, where the actual sentences could possibly be handed down. And I believe that this is the same obscenity tribunal that is called the David obscene, just as like a point of reference here for obscenity. And not until it went to the very high court did it actually become less of an obscenity. And in fact, they said, no, this is not obscene, this is extremely important work of European art, and it has a serious cultural significance. I don't think that will happen with this photograph. I don't think that this is high art on the same level at all. In fact, it's far from it. But this raises another interesting point, which is that because it is not such culturally significant art, it's much easier to suppress this type of speech. And as a result of this, there's a pretty good chance that this person will get a 400,000 Hong Kong dollar fine and a year in prison, which is pretty scary. And I really think that Yahoo and Flickr, seeing as that this was hosted on their service and seeing as that it's possible because of their censoring my account that it may have an unintended consequence, that I really think that it would probably behoove them to actually help out Owen and to actually stop the Chinese government in any way they can from actually punishing this person for doing something as simple as hyperlinking. I mean, we're not talking about code that's a circumvention device. This isn't about stealing profitability from a corporation or something like this, but this is about a corporation moving into a new market and localizing, and in doing so, changing the way that their service works in such a way that people can go to jail. And I think that they should be responsible, and they should help people that are doing something that is part of what anyone does on the internet, which is talking about content that they found on a completely legitimate site that was not at one point censored and now is. Flickr doesn't like to call their filtering system censorship, but that's what it is. It's censorship. And so I find all of this pretty horrible, and if any of you are using Flickr, I would recommend that you don't anymore. I don't know, is there a show of hands? Maybe people could say, are you using Flickr or any of these photo sharing services, these Web 2.0 things?
Yeah, who's using Flickr?
Anyone? So I think that people that work at Flickr are awesome. A lot of the people that work at Yahoo are really good people. There are lots of really good people there. But ultimately, I think the bottom line here is that the corporation itself has become an entity. It is a person, effectively, in the United States. And as a result of this, it's a person that is looking out, it's a schizophrenic person. There's a great documentary about this. It's called The Corporation. I would recommend